It began as a hushed conversation behind Kensington Palace walls, one that aides tried to downplay and courtiers quickly silenced. But the look on Prince William's face as he emerged from that private gathering said everything the palace refused to explain. Something significant had been decided. And at the center of it all stood Princess Charlotte. What started as a quiet rumor soon erupted into a royal storm that no one could contain. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Reports suggest the meeting was never meant to become public, and that may be why it has caused such a wave of speculation. Inside those closed doors, William, Catherine, and senior royal advisors were said to be discussing something far more sensitive than a routine family matter. The focus, according to palace whispers, had turned toward a historic jewel collection linked to the Queen Mother, a sapphire set carrying not only value, but memory, rank, and deep royal meaning. At first, aides treated the conversation as private housekeeping, the kind of internal decision the palace prefers to bury beneath silence. But Charlotte's name kept appearing in the quiet corners of the discussion, and that changed everything. Because when a young princess is suddenly linked to one of the most protected royal treasures, people notice. They ask why. They ask why now. They ask what William knows, what Catherine supports, and what future is already being prepared behind the polished doors of the monarchy. Some insiders reportedly believed this was William's way of drawing a line around Charlotte's place in the next royal chapter, not as an afterthought, not as a spare figure in the background, but as a child being carefully connected to the weight of history. And that is where the story became dangerous. A jewel set can be locked away, a rumor can be denied, but a decision about legacy cannot stay hidden forever. Once royal correspondents began hearing fragments of the same story, the whispers gained strength. The palace stayed silent, but silence only made the matter feel more serious. Because in royal life, what is not said often speaks loudest. And this time, the silence pointed toward William's quiet but firm decision to protect a treasure before anyone else could claim its meaning. But the real story wasn't about a family discussion. It was about a treasured royal inheritance that had been waiting decades for its next rightful owner. Long before Charlotte was born, the Queen Mother's sapphire set had already secured its place among the monarchy's most treasured possessions. It wasn't merely a collection of gemstones, it was a symbol of continuity, duty, and royal destiny, passed from one generation to another. For decades, the sapphires carried a quiet power inside the royal story, not because of their glitter alone, but because of what they represented: survival, grace, and the heavy promise of service. They belonged to a world where every jewel had a memory, every setting had a purpose, and every appearance carried a message sharper than any official statement. Reports suggest the set was treated with unusual care by those who understood its emotional weight, because sapphires have long been tied to loyalty, calm strength, and royal endurance. That is why the whispers around Charlotte became so explosive. This was not simply about a young princess receiving something beautiful one day. It was about whether the palace was quietly preparing her for a future shaped by duty before the public had even realized it. The Queen Mother's legacy still lingers over the monarchy like an unseen command, reminding every generation that jewels are never just personal treasures. They are symbols of who belongs, who is trusted, and who is expected to carry the crown's story forward. Previous royal women understood that burden. They wore history, not decoration. They carried expectation, not luxury. And now, with Charlotte's name reportedly connected to the sapphires, the meaning became impossible to ignore. Some insiders believed William's interest in reserving the set was a careful act of protection, a way of ensuring that this sacred inheritance would remain tied to the direct future of the monarchy. Others wondered if it marked the beginning of a wider shift, where Charlotte's role would be treated with greater seriousness than ever before. That uncertainty created tension, because in royal circles, possession is never only about ownership. It is about rank, it is about trust, it is about the silent approval of history itself. And as interest grew around the set's future, the palace found itself facing a question it could not easily answer. Was Charlotte simply being honored, Or was she being prepared for something far greater? Yet, while the Sapphires carried a remarkable history, the question of who would inherit them was becoming more controversial than anyone expected. For years, conversations about royal heirlooms focused on the present generation. Then suddenly, attention shifted toward Charlotte. Palace insiders reportedly began discussing her future role with unusual urgency, raising questions throughout royal circles. It was not the kind of shift that happens by accident. It felt deliberate, measured, and deeply tied to the future. William and Catherine were quietly building for their daughter. Charlotte had always held a special place in the public imagination. But now the tone around her seemed to change. She was no longer being spoken of only as a beloved young princess. She was being discussed as someone who may one day carry a visible, serious, and symbolic role inside the monarchy. That alone was enough to stir unease among those who understand how carefully royal futures are shaped. The comparisons came quickly. Some saw echoes of Queen Elizabeth's discipline. Others pointed to Princess Anne's steady strength, the kind of quiet force that never needs noise to be respected. And for William, that mattered. Reports suggest he has always believed the monarchy's next era must be built on trust, discipline, and duty, not glamour alone. Catherine, too, is said to understand the power of preparation. She knows that royal life does not simply arrive one day with a title and a tiara. It is taught slowly, through example, restraint, and the weight of expectation. That is why the reported discussion around the Queen Mother's sapphires carried such emotional force. If Charlotte was being linked to that legacy, it suggested more than affection. It suggested planning. It suggested protection. It suggested that William and Catherine were already thinking years ahead, guarding traditions before they could be weakened, challenged, or misunderstood. As Charlotte's public presence grew, so did the belief that she represented something rare in a shaken royal age: stability without arrogance, youth without recklessness, and promise without scandal. For a monarchy tested by tension, illness, family disputes, and public doubt, that image became powerful. Perhaps too powerful. Because once the palace begins attaching historical meaning to a young royal, every decision around her becomes loaded. Every jewel, every appearance, every private conversation becomes part of a larger message. And the more Charlotte's name rose in connection with duty and inheritance, the more certain insiders began asking whether this Sapphire decision was only the beginning of a much bigger royal strategy. As Charlotte's position grew stronger, another unexpected development was unfolding behind closed palace doors. Then came the moment that changed everything. Reports suggest Prince William decided the uncertainty could no longer continue. A decision regarding the future of the Queen Mother's sapphire set would finally be made, and it would send shockwaves throughout royal circles. For William, this was not a sudden emotional choice. It was the kind of move that appeared to come after long reflection, quiet consultation, and a clear understanding that royal legacy cannot be left floating in confusion. The sapphires had become more than a protected heirloom. They had become a test of direction. Who would carry the symbols of the past into the next generation? Who would be trusted with treasures tied to sacrifice, service, and the silent authority of the crown? According to palace whispers, William began reviewing long-term inheritance plans with a sharper focus, looking not only at tradition, but at what those traditions would mean in the monarchy Charlotte is growing into. Advisors were reportedly drawn into careful discussions, not to create scandal, but to avoid one. Because inside the royal system, hesitation can be dangerous. If a question of inheritance remains unanswered for too long, it invites speculation, ambition, and hidden pressure. William understood that. Catherine understood it too. Their approach, insiders suggest, was not about glamour or favoritism. It was about safeguarding the future before uncertainty could damage it. Royal precedent mattered. The Queen Mother's legacy mattered. The direct line mattered. And Charlotte's place within that line mattered more than ever. This was why the reported decision felt so powerful. It did not simply reserve a jewel set. It sent a message: some legacies must be protected early, clearly, and without apology. Palace observers described the atmosphere as tense but controlled, as if everyone involved knew they were touching something deeply sensitive. One wrong move could be seen as exclusion. One delayed decision could be seen as weakness. But William, shaped by years of watching royal storms from inside the walls, appeared determined not to let emotion outrun duty. The reported order around the Sapphire set became a defining moment because it showed a future king acting before crisis, not after. And in doing so, he placed Charlotte at the heart of a royal conversation that could no longer be dismissed as childhood promise. It was becoming strategy. It was becoming legacy. It was becoming a declaration of where the monarchy was heading next. But as word of the decision quietly spread, reactions inside royal circles became impossible to ignore. The response was immediate. What had started as a private family matter suddenly became one of the most discussed topics behind palace walls. Some reportedly viewed the decision as inevitable. Others saw it as a dramatic shift in royal planning. And that division made the atmosphere even heavier. Because when royal insiders disagree over inheritance, the argument is never really about one object. It is about power, trust, and the future shape of the institution. Supporters of William's reported move believed the decision honored tradition in its purest form. To them, reserving the Queen Mother's Sapphire set for Charlotte was not a shocking break from custom, but a careful act of protection. They saw Charlotte as part of the direct royal future, a young princess whose name already carries the weight of expectation, and they believed the Sapphires belonged within that clear line of continuity. But critics quietly questioned the timing. Why now? Why make such a sensitive decision while the monarchy was already surrounded by public pressure, family strain, and endless speculation about what the next era would look like? That question began to spread through royal circles like smoke. Palace silence only deepened the mystery. There was no public denial, no clear explanation, no calm statement designed to end the rumors. And in the absence of answers, curiosity grew sharper. Media voices began comparing the decision to past royal inheritance choices, when jewels, titles, and family treasures became symbols of approval or quiet exclusion. That comparison made everything feel more loaded. The public was not just asking whether Charlotte would one day wear sapphires. They were asking what William trying to say by securing them now. Was this a father protecting his daughter's place? Was it a future king preparing the monarchy for a more disciplined age? Or was it a warning that the most sacred symbols of the crown would no longer drift through uncertainty? The more people discussed it, the more Charlotte's future moved from soft curiosity into serious royal conversation. Her name became linked not only to youth and promise, but to responsibility, inheritance, and the survival of tradition itself. And that was where the emotional tension truly began. Because every royal decision creates winners, but it also creates those left outside the circle of trust. The sapphires may have been beautiful, but the meaning behind them was unforgiving. Once William's reported decision entered the palace bloodstream, it revealed a deeper truth. The monarchy was quietly choosing what kind of future it wanted to protect, and who would be allowed to carry its most precious symbols forward. Yet beyond the debate and speculation, the significance of the decision reached far deeper than a single jewel collection. The sapphires represented far more than beauty and value. For generations, royal jewels have served as symbols of responsibility, sacrifice, and continuity. Whoever wears them is often seen as carrying the weight of history itself. That is why this reported decision felt so emotionally charged. In ordinary families, jewelry may be remembered as a gift, a memory, or a private treasure. But inside the monarchy, a jewel can become a message. It can tell the world who is trusted, who is being prepared, and who now stands closest to the living heartbeat of tradition. The Queen Mother understood that power better than most. Her image was built on endurance, loyalty, and a deep sense of royal duty. And the sapphires connected to her memory carried that same quiet force. They were not loud. They did not need to be. Their meaning came from the history attached to them, from the belief that royal objects are never fully owned by one person. They are held, guarded, and passed on when the moment is right. That is why Charlotte's name being linked to the set created such fascination. It suggested that William was not only thinking about inheritance, but about identity. Who does Charlotte become in the story of the crown? What values will she represent? And how early should a future role begin to take shape? Reports suggest palace figures understood the sensitivity immediately. Because once a young royal is connected to a historic heirloom, the public begins reading it like a signal. The Sapphires became a kind of silent promise. They seemed to say that Charlotte would not be pushed to the edges of royal memory. She would be prepared, protected, and one day trusted with symbols that belonged to something greater than personal privilege. Yet that promise also carried pressure. Every royal heirloom comes with expectation. It asks for restraint. It asks for service. It asks the wearer to honor those who came before, even when the world is watching for weakness. For Charlotte, that could mean growing into a role shaped not by noise, but by steadiness. And for William and Catherine, it may mean ensuring she understands that royal legacy is never just about sparkling moments. It is about discipline, duty, and the heavy silence of tradition. Public fascination grew because people sensed that the Sapphires were telling a larger story. This was about the future of royal womanhood, the survival of old customs, and the careful making of a new generation. And as the symbolism became clearer, attention shifted toward what this could mean for Charlotte's future inside the monarchy. For many royal watchers, this wasn't simply about a sapphire collection. It was about the future. Every major decision involving Charlotte now seems to carry broader implications for the next era of the royal family. That is why the reported reservation of the Queen Mother's sapphire set felt so much larger than a private inheritance choice. It suggested that Charlotte's role was slowly being shaped with the same seriousness once given to the strongest royal women before her. Some observers saw echoes of Queen Elizabeth II in the discipline expected of her. Others saw something closer to Princess Anne, steady, direct, loyal, and unwilling to treat duty as decoration. Those comparisons may feel heavy for someone still so young, but within royal life, preparation begins long before the public understands it. William and Catherine appear to know this better than anyone. Their strategy has never seemed loud or rushed. It has been careful, protective, and deeply aware of the cost that royal pressure can bring. They have watched the monarchy face scandal, illness, family division, and public doubt, and perhaps that is why Charlotte's future is being handled with such quiet precision. Reports suggest they want her to understand that royal importance is not built through attention, but through steadiness. Not through drama, but through service. Not through demanding a place, but through earning trust over time. The Sapphires, in that sense, became a symbol of what may be expected from her one day. They suggested grace under pressure, strength without arrogance, and loyalty to something bigger than personal comfort. Public confidence in the younger generation has already begun to grow, partly because William and Catherine's children are often seen as carrying a softer, calmer hope for the monarchy's future. But with Charlotte, that hope has a particular emotional pull. She stands between tradition and change, between childhood and destiny, between a protected private life and a future that may demand far more from her than anyone can yet say aloud. That contrast gives the story its suspense, because behind every royal privilege comes a hidden sacrifice. Behind every treasured heirloom comes an expectation, and behind every decision made today lies a future test that may arrive years later. If Charlotte is being prepared as a visible guardian of continuity, then William's reported decision was not only about preserving a jewel set, it was about shaping the image of the crown itself. Younger, steadier, more disciplined, and still tied to the old symbols that give monarchy its power. But perhaps the most revealing aspect of all was what the decision quietly signaled about William's vision for the years ahead. In the end, the story was never truly about sapphires. It was about legacy. It was about a father looking toward the future and deciding what should endure long after today's headlines disappear. And that may be the most important royal message of all. Reports suggest William's decision was rooted in something deeper than family affection. It was about continuity, about protecting the symbols that link one generation to the next, and about making sure Charlotte's future place within the monarchy is not left open to doubt. The Queen Mother's legacy still carries a strong emotional pull, because she represented loyalty in difficult times, quiet strength under pressure, and devotion to the crown even when history demanded sacrifice. To connect Charlotte with that memory is to suggest that William sees her not only as his daughter, but as part of the royal future he is already preparing to defend. Public reaction has been intense because people understand, even without formal palace confirmation, that royal jewels often speak when the palace does not. They can signal trust, they can mark belonging, they can show where the institution believes its future strength will come from. And in this reported decision, many saw a symbolic passing from one era into another, from the Queen Mother's endurance, through William's careful guardianship, toward Charlotte's promise. But that promise is not light. It carries responsibility. It asks for discipline, patience, and the ability to stand inside a family where every choice can become a national conversation. William's focus on long-term stability may be his answer to years of royal uncertainty. Instead of waiting for confusion to grow, he appears to be drawing the lines early, preserving tradition before it can be weakened, and making clear that the monarchy's most meaningful symbols must remain tied to duty. That is why the Sapphire story has gripped so many royal watchers. It feels personal but also historic. It feels tender but also strategic. It feels like a father's protection but also a future king's command. And somewhere inside that tension lies the real power of the decision. Charlotte may not yet understand the full weight of what these heirlooms represent, but one day she may. One day, the sapphires may stand not just for beauty but for trust earned slowly, legacy protected carefully, and a royal story carried forward with quiet strength. Because while royal jewels may sparkle for a moment, the legacy they represent can shape a family and a monarchy for generations to come. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.